Bear's just come to say hello. What's he doing in here? What's he doing in here? Oh, he wants to cuddles. Has he been missing the cuddles? Normally he's in here with me through most of the day, but I've got all this lighting and camera situation happening, so he's a little bit like, what's happening? Why did it happen? You gotta put your head up high so people can see you. There you go. There you go. He's so cute. Alright, he may or may not stay. He may or may not trip over lighting as he leaves. So, today I wanted to chat to you. I've got dog hair on my lips. About the 5 most magical moments of my life. Now, I just wanted to do 5 because I figured that's probably enough story time. But I got this idea from one of you guys who commented, gosh, it was a couple of years ago now, I think. But you asked, what are the most magical moments of your life that will never leave you? And I thought this was such a great idea, and I had it written down in my little YouTube book. Yes, I did, Bear. So I thought I would go through 5, and I've written them, well, I've got written little notes in front of me so I remember, but I'll tell you them in chronological order. So the very first one was when I was in grade 5, so I was about 10, maybe 11 years old, and I was with my best friend at the time, who shall remain nameless, and she was actually the very first person to get me into magic at all. Now, what I didn't realize at the time is that everything she was telling me was coming straight from the show Charmed, right? So she was telling me about all this lore and like this is how witchery works, and you know, you've got to be careful of warlocks and all this kind of stuff, right? And then I honestly didn't even know until a few years after, like it was only a few years ago, I actually discovered that it was all from the show Charmed, because I'd never watched Charmed. I was never allowed to watch it, you know, when I was younger. My mum's super against anything, you know, witchery or whatever related. She's a bit more chill now because of how popular fantasy is, and because obviously her children have grown up and gotten into this stuff. But yeah, so she was super anti that, so I never watched it, you know, and when I was older I just kind of, I don't know, I just didn't get around to watching it. Anyway, I did watch it several years after I became a witch, and I just, like, my jaw dropped to the ground, and I was like, this is exactly what she was telling me, you know, when I was a kid. I had no idea, you know, up to that point. So anyway, that was a thing. But the magical moment that happened at that time, all right, we're going to leave now. Good luck, Bear. That's the way. Very carefully. Good boy. So the magical moment that happened, it was a real magical moment that happened, even though the stuff she was telling me was from a TV show. But you know, that's the way I think a lot of us start out anyway. From what I'm hearing about other people and that sort of thing, it's like often a movie or a book or something that introduces us to magic and we're like, ooh, and then that's how we get into it. But what had happened was, there was the first time I ever experienced magic. I was on the Oval with her at school, and there was one other girl there, and I can't remember who it was. I sort of suspect who it was, not that that matters to you guys, but there was 3 of us there. And we were calling up the elements, I believe it was. I don't remember what was said, but I remember we were standing around in this circle on the edge of the Oval in this spot where there was a couple of trees there. It was beautiful. And I think it probably was autumn. I remember it was quite cold. So we were there and we were calling up the elements, I think. And I just remember the feeling, that's what I remember. And this wind rushing through as we kind of got to the crescendo of that moment. And like, oh my God, the feeling, it was incredible. I just remember being filled with this awe. And that was like the first moment that I experienced magic. And I didn't have any words for it at the time, and nothing in particular sort of happened, but there was this sensation that just came through my whole body, and it was like an awakening in that moment, you know. And it wasn't until many years later that I actually got into witchcraft, but it was that moment that, you know, always stuck with me. And yeah, it was a really powerful experience. Now there are children outside my window. I don't know if you can hear, but my neighbors are literally like right there. So apparently someone's a little bit upset right now. I just heard her talking about that. Anyway, so the next magical moment in my life was my first spell. So this is again many years later after. Sorry, I keep looking down. I've got notes there. I don't know why. There's no information really other than just like tell this story. So my very first spell, and I have told this story before, and I told it recently again when I was live with Ravenflower on her channel, probably a couple months ago now, and it was about a month ago, something like that, 2 months, I don't know. It's been a little while. Now, I had this soul tie with this person. I had a soul tie, a really unhealthy soul tie with someone. And I had this at the time, I think it was 10 years. It had been 10 years that I had this connection with someone that was really unhealthy. And one night it got to the point where I just all of a sudden, you know how sometimes things just click and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? So I had got to that point and I was like, I have to get rid of this. I need this gone from my life. Like I can't have this anymore. And I was living by the beach, so here at the time, although not in this house, and you know, a house down the street with my in-laws. And I went down to the beach. It was nighttime, and that was where I did a lot of my first magics, actually, was nighttime at the beach. So I went down there and I just intuitively did this spell. And I ended up, I was so just filled with emotion, and I just like plopped myself on the sand. And I saw this stick sitting there, so I picked up the stick and I ended up just pouring that relationship into the stick. I just poured everything that person was and all the emotions that I had running through me. I poured it all into the stick. And then when I felt like I was ready, after, I don't know how long, it was several minutes more, I don't know, I went over to the water and I threw the stick as hard as I possibly could out into the water, gone. And it was such a tremendously powerful experience, and it actually worked so well. So that person was gone from my life from that point and still has never come back. So I actually tried to pick up with them in a moment of weakness a few years after that, and it just kind of didn't go anywhere. It didn't work. It didn't happen, you know. And it was 10 years of this thing that had been going on between us. So it was absolutely incredible. It worked so powerfully, and it was just such an incredible moment because it was something that I did intuitively, you know, just in that moment. I had never learnt to do anything like that, and I've heard many spells since, kind of, you know, with a kind of similar structure, I suppose, you know, putting in the thing to the thing and then getting rid of the thing. But yeah, it was completely intuitive at the time, and because it worked so well, it just, like, I was absolutely gobsmacked. The third experience was several years, or maybe a year or two actually, after I had decided to be a witch. Like, I dedicated myself to the path. I was like, yes, we are doing this thing. And I really wanted to have a lone camping trip. So I wanted a spiritual retreat for myself. So we had this gorgeous camping spot that we were going to at the time. And it was just, I wish I want to go there again so I can actually show it to you guys, because it's absolutely glorious. So we might go at some point. We've been talking about going camping again. Now that we can this year, we obviously couldn't last year. So this beautiful spot, I went there on my own, and I wanted to go to that spot because I felt really safe there. It was just a really gorgeous spot, and I'd been there several times with other people. And I chose my little camp spot, and I had decided, like, I was really connecting with the horned god at the time. I think it was a relatively new relationship still, maybe. Well, I mean, I guess I'd only been practicing for a year or two at the time. But I felt so connected with him, and I had decided I was really going to connect more deeply with him on that retreat. And I'm a person who has always felt quite scared to be alone. And so I really deeply invited him into that space with me, and I felt so safe the entire time, even though, you know, I was just a young woman on my own. But the first incredible experience with him was at dusk, and I sort of ended up going for this little walk around this sort of woodland area, and he was right there with me, and I could see him. And like, it was like he was there with me. Like, it was so real. He was so solid. And, you know, we just walked and, you know, I was talking to him, and it was just this incredible experience. And in that moment, that guise of him, because I work with him in several different guises, was very much like king of the forest, you know, that like fairy king kind of, but more king of the forest. And yeah, it was just a glorious experience, and I can go back there at any moment. Like, it was that powerful, and it's that ingrained in my head. Like, I'm there now as I'm talking to you about it, you know, and it was just the most magical experience. And then later on that same evening, I think it was, well, I did it both evenings, but the time I'm remembering was when I had set camp, and I called up another of his guises. And this was a little bit more hellhound kind of devil guise. And I set him to protect the perimeter of my campsite. And I could see him prowling around. And I have never felt so safe and so secure in my life. And it was 2 nights that I went, and both nights I had him there. Yeah, it was incredible. And, you know, because I had been, I think, a little bit nervous before I went on the camping trip, just how I would go in the evening and stuff. Like, would I be in my tent, like, afraid or whatever? But I was so chill. I was so chill and calm. And then, you know, I invited the other guys of the Horned God into the tent with me. So I was like, one inside, one prowling around outside, like, I'm sweet, you know. So that was an incredibly magical experience as well. The next most magical experience was my first multi-part spell. So that was when I manifested my witchy shack. So the other house that I used to live in, when I first manifested that house. I still feel like I have dog hair. So we had found this house online, and the second I saw it, I was like, I want that house. That is the house. So we went up to the area, and it's about an 1.5 hour drive for where we are now, and that was where we lived back then as well, the same suburb. So we drove up there and we saw the house, and the second we parked out the front, I was like, oh my God, this is the house. It had the 2 big trees out the front, and a few years into us living there, they actually tore one of the trees down, which absolutely broke my heart. It was a little unsafe though, so I get it. But there were these big trees out the front, and of course, you know, you guys saw the yard, you know, it was so green and beautiful, and it's like this old weatherboard house, and I was like, oh my God. And we went inside and we did the tour, and I just knew, I was like, yes, this is the one. Now, before we had gone, I knew that I wanted the house. So what I had done is I took a little rose quartz with me, and it was a really, really special rose quartz. I'd gotten it from a person who was very, very dear to me. So I really wanted to keep the rose quartz, right? So my whole idea was that I was going to leave the rose quartz at the property if, you know, I was sure I really wanted it, and yes, of course I did. And I would only be able to get it back if we obviously were accepted and, you know, got the property. So I actually left it at the base of one of the apple trees there as an offering, and also as a connection for me, so that I could connect with the land from where I was at and actually do spell work, you know, to have the 2 connected, if that makes sense. So I had that token of myself, something so special that was there. So I had that connection, a stronger bond with the place. So my magic would work more strongly. And so I proceeded to do all of these workings. I printed out an image of the house, and I had a crystal grid set up on it. I had words around it for what the home would be for us, which it very much turned out to be. And I worked that thing, let me tell you. And I ended up actually putting that piece of paper into worm castings, which is worm poop, which is incredibly good for the garden. So I put it in a big bowl in there, and I planted it in our little garden. So my husband and I had started a little veggie garden at my in-laws' house. So it was kind of like our little plot of land, I guess, in a way. And so I actually buried it in the earth there, and as I was doing spell work, I was connecting with the other land, like I was speaking to that land, and I was just telling the land, like, we want to be your next people, like, we're going to take care of you, and I just told it about what we wanted to be for it and what I wanted it to be for us, and, if that was cool, then, like, please make it be so that, we get to live there, we get to, be with you. And we did. We were accepted, obviously, and we had 4 incredibly magical years there. I keep thinking it's 5 for some reason. 5 years is the longest I've ever lived in one place in my life, and so I felt like I was at that place the longest, so I always say 5, but it was actually 4 years we were there for. And it was such a healing space for me. And it was this like, it was the space where my magic bloomed. It was the space where I bloomed, and I was able to begin expressing myself. And, you know, I found my career there, and I feel like we really became a family in that place as well. And it just holds so many beautiful memories for me. And I often actually go back there in my mind even now. I love this house. There's so much to love about the house that we're in now. But there is so much that I miss about the other one, you know, and it will always hold such a special place in my heart. And I manifested it through my first multi-part spell. So it's a really cool thing to think back and remember, and to just kind of see these different, you know, when you look back and see the spell work that you've done, and, you know, to see how it's worked, and you're like, that's really cool. And it's really nice as you are kind of progressing along your path as well. Like at this point, I feel very confident in my magic. I know that when I put my mind and heart and energy to it, like I can make a thing happen. But, you know, for a long time, I didn't have that evidence that that was true. So just anytime anything sort of big or special happened like that, you know, I made sure to really pay attention to it and show myself and be like, look at this. Like, look at what your magic has done, that energy within you, that power within you. You know, it's a really cool thing. All right, last story. So some of you might think less of me for this. I don't know, we'll see. Okay, so at the other house, one evening, I was consecrating a very powerful and special tool that I was going to be using in my magic, right? And that was this great big beautiful glass bong. Okay, so I quite like cannabis. I love it for spiritual use. I tend to go through phases with it, so I'll have it for a short period of time, and then I won't have it for quite a long period, and I'll have it for a short period, and I find I work best with it that way. If I have it for too long, I get very lazy and I don't use it well. But when I have it for short periods, it helps me make incredible connections, and I just make all these connections in my mind. I get so many insights. My creativity just bursts wide open. It's amazing, right? So I had bought this bong and it was like this blue glass with all this lightning, like glow in the dark lightning up the side. It was very sort of, you know, 17-year-old boy kind of, you know, kind of thing, but I loved it. It was my first one because normally before that I was just smoking joints, and I think this was after I had quit smoking, it must have been. Anyway, and it, you know, it goes much further if you actually smoke it that way. Although it's a very different high. I prefer the high of a joint. But anyway, so I had this and I decided I'm going to consecrate this because this is going to be my spiritual tool, right? So I was at my altar and it was this beautiful evening, and I was going through all of the elements, you know, consecrating this this magical tool. And when I got to fire, I called on the element of fire. And literally as I called, I was like, you know, I don't know what I said exactly. I welcome the element of fire or something, I don't know. At that moment, out of nowhere, there was nothing happening outside before this, just this huge boom of thunder. And I was like, oh my God. You know, it was just one of those incredible moments where just like this alignment happens, like just in that moment, and you feel like it was deep, this deep resonant rumble, you know, I could feel it in the ground. Oh, it was incredible. And I was like, yes, you know, and because I was so excited to have weed again, you know, it was just like this whole thing, it was amazing. So anyway, that's my final story of my 5 magical moments that have happened in my life. I would love to hear what the magical moments that are going to stick with you forever are. What are some of your stories? If you want to leave 1 or 2 down below, I know it can be hard to kind of write out this stuff sometimes. I've jabbered on for a bit, I think. If you make a video about this, or if you already have a video about this, please leave a little link of it down below. I'd love to check it out. I know other people would too. If you do leave links, you guys, I'm always happy for you to leave links. I'll just say as a side note, please leave your links down below, but give us a little synopsis of what the video is about. So I find some people come in and they'll just post a link and they won't say anything about it. Now that doesn't encourage anyone to go look at the video, because what's it about? Like, it's kind of like spam if it's like that. So leave a little synopsis, you know, tell us what it's about, put the link there so we can go check it out. I would absolutely love that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this chatty video. I feel like it's been all over the place. My head's a little bit out there, but that's okay. I'm wishing you all so much love and many, many blessings, and I will see you in the next one.